Good afternoon. I'm John Matea, president of the Goldwater Scholarship Foundation. I'm very excited about today's webinar. For the 2019 Goldwater competition, we partnered with the Department of Defense's National Defense Education Program. This partnership enabled us to double the number of Goldwater scholarships awarded from approximately 250 in 2018 to 500 in 2019. This increase in scholarships will continue through 2023. But the exciting news doesn't stop here. The Defense Department has other programs that provide scholarship and research opportunities, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Before introducing my colleague from the Department of Defense, I'd first like to introduce Linda Zulsdorf and Laura Mickle from Scholarship America, who are providing the technical support to bring you today's webinar. They will tell you how you can best participate in today's webinar. Linda and Laura?
Hi, I'm Linda Zulsdorf, Lead Program Manager, and I'm joined by Laura Mickle, who co-manages the Goldwater Scholarship Program. Thank you for joining the webinar today. As John mentioned, we will be here to monitor the questions box and forward questions to the panelists. Please submit your questions to us using the questions box on your screen. Later in the webinar, the panelists will answer some of your questions.
Hi, this is Laura Mickle. We are also here for your support. If you have any questions regarding GoToWebinar, please contact us via the chat function and we will try our best to assist you. Enjoy.
Thank you, Linda and Laura. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to your host for the rest of today's webinar, Mr. Louis Lopez. Mr. Lopez is the director of the STEM programs in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense in Research and Engineering's Defense Laboratories and Personnel. Mr. Lopez is responsible for the management and execution of DoD's K through graduate school STEM initiatives organized by the National Defense Education Program. Mr. Lopez will be providing details on these programs and introducing you to his colleagues from throughout the Department of Defense who provide other important scholarships and research opportunities. Mr. Lopez's bachelor's degree is in mathematics and his master's degree is in educational technology. I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Lopez to today's Goldwater webinar. Please enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, John, for that introduction. First, I wanted to, if we could go to the next slide. The presentation today, as John mentioned, is going to go over Department of Defense opportunities in internships and other fellowship programs. But first, I wanted to introduce my co-presenter today, Mr. Tyler Temple.
Hello, how you doing?
And he is the program manager for our Science, Mathematics, and Research Transformation, or SMART Scholarship Program. So first, I wanted to show you this chart. I know it's quite an eyeful, and the laboratory names are really tiny. You probably can't see it in your version. But my point here is to show you the 60 defense laboratories throughout the country, as well as international location, with over 50,000 scientists and engineers doing scientific research and engineering work in those laboratories. And this is why the Department of Defense invests in STEM education, not just at the K-12 level, but also at the undergraduate and graduate level, so that we have enduring access to the next generation of STEM talent to backfill some of our scientists and engineering positions at Department of Defense, as well as with our partners in academia and the federal funded research development centers. Next slide, please. So just briefly, I wanted to talk to you. I know when we had this partnership established with the Barry Goldwater Foundation, and we talked about providing this webinar, I believe we wanted to focus on research topics and opportunities. So currently, under the National Defense Strategies, we have 11 modernization technology priority areas, and it's listed here in bold. Anywhere from AI, machine learning, to biotechnology, cyber, to microelectronic microelectronics, quantum science, and hypersonics. What we've also done in some of these is that we've provided some example research areas, like for instance in AI and machine learning, but robotics and natural language processing, or big data analytics for quantum science, or aerothermodynamics for hypersonics. Next slide, please. Here, I want to spend a couple minutes just to give you some sample internship, scholarship, and fellowship. When we forged this partnership with Barry Goldwater, I understand that the majority of the Goldwater scholars or prospective scholars are working in research, and basically in what we do in the research and engineering arm of the Department of Defense is research across the basic science all the way up to prototyping and manufacturing and commercialization. Right. And so I wanted to introduce you to the different types of internships that's available at the undergraduate and graduate level that's happening either at our defense laboratory or at our partner academic institution. I'm not going to read through them, but the Army, Navy, and Air Force have paid research internship programs that you can search through the website URL that's shown on this chart, DoDSTEM.us. If you go there and search for opportunities, then you can go to the specific program website, and then you can search the different locations. I also want to talk briefly about the fellowship program that the Department of Defense has. And I believe some of you are already aware of this. This is the National Defense Science and Engineering Graduate Fellowship program, which, as you can see, the benefits there shows up to 3 years, where it pays for the full tuition and mandatory fees, as well as insurance and travel and a stipend. And I believe some of the scholars of Goldwater have been awarded the NDSEG fellowship before. We also have other DoD scholarships, such as the Cyber Assurance Scholarship, which you could also search through our website. And then now we want to spend a little bit more time about the SMART Scholarship, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Temple to talk about it.
All right, thank you very much, Louis. If we go to the next slide. So my name is Tyler Temple. I fall under Louis' portfolio, specifically to manage the Science, Mathematics, and Research for Transformation program. What it is a scholarship for civilian service program. So how we like to think about it is kind of an ROTC for civilian scientists and engineers. So next slide, please. So what is the goal? The goal is to increase the highly skilled STEM talent in the DoD workforce, and to include disciplines that are critical to the national security functions of the Department of Defense. So next slide. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here because this really determines your eligibility for this program. As you can see on the slide, you must maintain a 3.0 out of 4.0 GPA on a 4.0 scale, be pursuing a degree in one of the 21 STEM disciplines that you'll see a little later, and obtain and maintain a security clearance. One of those conditions to obtain and maintain a security clearance is typically to be a U.S. citizen, though some exceptions do apply, such as citizens from the United Kingdom, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. And some of the other things that also go involved with security clearance that we need to make explicitly clear is our clearance investigations follow all federal laws, so it does not matter what local and state laws apply to your respective regions. When we look at disqualifying factors for security clearance, just be cognizant that federal laws do apply, and that those are what you will be investigated against. So next slide. So I'm sure you want to know, with all that, what you get out of it. So for our scholars that are awarded a scholarship, they are awarded full tuition and fees for up to 1.5 years, up to 5, and that is to pursue a bachelor's, master's, or PhD at an accredited U.S. college. As you can also see on the slide, On top of the full tuition fees, you're provided a stipend depending on the degree level you're pursuing, as well as some book and health insurance allowances. And then during the summers, you'll go to your facilities that you'll be sponsoring you, and you'll perform an 8 to 12 week internship and get mentorship from a DoD scientist or engineer, and then obviously postgraduate employment. So not only is your school paid for and you're offered a pretty competitive living stipend, you're also guaranteed a job at the end of your scholarship. So that final year, there's no stress of trying to find a job, and you can kind of just focus on your schooling, which is what we want you to do. So next slide, please. These are all the 21 STEM disciplines. All of these disciplines align under the 11 National Defense Modernization priorities that Louis mentioned before. I'm not going to go through them all, but as you can see, it includes all engineering, the hard sciences, some life sciences, and some of the classics. And while my map is not as busy, on the next slide, you'll find where we have our opportunities for 190 sponsored facilities across 40 states. So while we include most of the 60 laboratories that Louis had on his slide, we also have abundance of other facilities that fall outside of what you would consider the traditional DoD laboratories, such as sustainment centers or maintenance centers, as well as we have what would be Army depots and the Corps of Engineers on the civilian work side also that handle all of federal construction and infrastructure. So this just kind of gives you an idea, like the slide before, about where we are located within the United States and where possibly you could end up, as well as just kind of an understanding of how vast this program really truly is. So the next slide, if you look at the timeline, so our application is actually open now at smartscholarship.org, and the application closes on 3 December. If you are interested in this application, I would highly recommend you go to that website and start now, because this isn't an application you're probably going to finish in one sitting. There are some essay questions as well as letters of recommendation that are needed. And what we really implore people to do about their application is actually sit down and think of the 2 questions that you're asked and really put together a cogent answer so that we truly understand what your life goals are and what your professional research goals are and why they align with the DoD. In January, we have an evaluation. So we have an evaluation panel made up of academia and DoD subject matter experts. They score your applicants, and each application gets 3 looks. And then based upon that, we make a cut depending on how much budget we have available for new awards. And then in February and March, our sponsored facilities, so the 190 facilities go into our portal and go in and make their selections. After the selections are made, awards are typically announced in the first week of April, depending on how everything works out with selection in February and March. And then if you were to be awarded, you're actually required to go on a site visit. So at the time of award, you will know what your sponsored facility is, so where you'll be working post-graduation and where you'll be doing your internships. With that site visit that we've implemented, you actually go there pre-award so that you can see the geographic location, understand the mission of the facility, as well as understand the workforce culture and kind of your starting salary and security clearance requirements. We found that to be very helpful in setting expectations. And post-site visit, you actually have the ability to opt out of your award at no cost, so that if you come to realize that this maybe isn't the best fit for you. And that's just a benefit for both the scholar and the program at that point. Next slide. So if you were to be awarded this scholarship, this is kind of the timeline in which every year you go through. So our program year starts on 1 August and goes to 31 July. When you're in phase 1, nothing changes. You're going to school, you're getting good grades, maintaining that 3.0, and then in the summer you perform your internships. And then once you finish your schooling, you will go on and graduate, and then you'll be hired into the DoD. During your timeline of the first year of your award, you will be processed for security clearance, and that is the level of clearance is dependent upon the position you're going to take on. Next slide. This is my final slide. Like I said, smartscholarship.org is our website, and I highly recommend anyone go visit just to get more information. But also, like I said, the application is open and you have about 2 weeks left. And I would say you should take every bit of time you need to look at that. And then our contact information as well, smartscholarship.org is our email. And then please follow us on all the social media you see there. And so with that, I will.
So Tyler, since it looks like we have a little bit of time, could you provide just a little bit of information as far as how many new awards we typically awarded over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so we've actually seen an increase in awards. However, this year, so we've steadily increased. Last year we awarded 398 awards. I'm sorry, 298 awards. And the year before that was 382. And the reason we saw the drop in awards was due to the fact that we actually had quite a bit of continuing awards from the previous year. So this year we're expected to make anywhere from 200 to 250 new awards based upon the continuing award and the budget we have left. However, I would still encourage you to apply. I will say that the top 3 disciplines that are awarded over the past 4 years have been mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and computer engineering / computer science. Those have made up the majority of the awards over the other 18 STEM disciplines. That's not to discourage anyone from applying in those other STEM disciplines. I just want to set expectations of what to expect competition-wise. And
off the top, if you notice, percentage-wise, roughly by grade level, by levels at the undergraduate, master's, and PhD.
So currently, our current makeup is about 50% bachelor's, 25% master's, and 25% PhD, and that has held true per individual cohort over the last 3 years as well. So we would expect something similar this year.
Okay. Do you want to introduce the panelists?
Yes. So 2 of our panelists are able to connect video link-wise, and we do have 1 audio only. So our first panelist is Alfred Yu, whose sponsoring facility is the Army Research Lab at Adelphi. He received his PhD through the SMART program and was a part of the 2007 cohort. Next we have, Alfred, can you say hi?
Hi, Roy.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time out today. Christopher Duran is from the Space Missile Defense Technical Center down in Huntsville, Alabama. He also got his PhD through the SMART program and was a part of the 2015 cohort. Christopher, can you say hi?
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. And then our last person is Oliver Nania from the Air Force Research Lab Census Directorate at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. He's audio only, but he did receive his PhD through the SMART program as the 2016 cohort. So Oliver, can you say hi?
Hi there.
So Oliver, thanks for joining us. So you should all have received these questions ahead of time, but Alfred, we'll start with you. Can you just describe what made you apply to the SMART program when you were looking?
Sure. When I was in my first year of graduate school, I was preparing an NSF Graduate Research Fellowship application, and my PhD advisor suggested that I also apply for this new DoD program called SMART. He said it's probably not for everyone because there's this service commitment thing. And during that conversation, I mentioned to him that out of college, I had actually considered applying for Army Officer Candidate School. So to me, the service requirement was kind of a pro in my book. I kind of wanted to do that sort of service. My advisor had worked at Bell Labs, and he was kind of familiar with the defense-related work, and he put me in touch with a friend of his who worked at the Office of Naval Research to talk it over, and he must have done a pretty good job because, here I am.
All right, thank you. Christopher, same question goes to you.
Yeah, I had applied actually in undergrad and didn't get it because I didn't have enough time left during my undergraduate career. So I was aware of it for several years before I applied for it in graduate school later. And I applied for SMART and NDSEG at the same time. And I chose to go with SMART after I got offers from both because of the employment at the end. My dad was in the Air Force, and I got to see some military labs, and and other operational capabilities, and it seemed like a pretty cool job to do, so that was a big plus for me.
Thank you. And Oliver, can you answer the same question? What made you apply to the SMART program?
Yeah, so I completed an internship the summer previously here at the Air Force at the Sensors Directorate. I really liked the work here. I really liked my internship. My mentors were very good, and they encouraged me to apply to this program. And I had actually applied the year before without them knowing. And, you know, I knew it was a very difficult scholarship to get in. It is very competitive. And so I tried once and I couldn't get it the first time. And the second time I applied, I had more experience after the internship. And so I decided to go for it, and then I got it. At the time, I had my daughter, who was only 3, 4 years old. And so it was kind of hard to make me ends meet because of the lowest stipend that I was getting at the school where I was at. And so we wanted to get a little bit more income, and this fellowship seemed very good opportunity because the stipends were much better. And so that's what also encouraged me to apply for the scholarship.
Thank you. And I just want to kind of pile on to both Christopher and Oliver there. As you heard, they've applied multiple times. And so while this is a competitive scholarship, we do have stories, you know, two here as prime examples that just because you didn't get it 1 year, if you still have school remaining and are eligible for the program, continue to apply to this because we've had people apply 2, 3, even 4 years in a row and then finally be awarded, you know, obviously, you know, probably at a different degree level like Christopher did, but that's something that we highly encourage to still maintain an application and just remain competitive. And no matter what, it also shows our evaluators the caliber of student. So while you may not be selected for a SMART scholarship, since you do apply to a DoD program, we've had other programs reach out to us within the DoD that have looked at some of our denied scholars and kind of reached out to them for different opportunities as well. So while you are applying for a single opportunity here with the SMART scholarship, that does not necessarily mean you will not be contacted by the DoD if your application package is suitable for other needs. So Christopher, I'll go back to you. Can you tell me about your experience with the application process for SMART and if you have any tips to share?
Yeah, like you said, you're not going to finish it in one sitting. It probably took me about a week of evenings to word things just how I wanted them. There's several letters of recommendation that you need to get, and my recommendation is find somebody that you trust, that you think is articulate and kind of aware of maybe DoD needs and you know, how things are written in the military compared to other places, and have them look over it to strengthen your package.
Thank you. And Oliver, question same for you. How was your experience with the application, and if you have any tips?
Yeah, since I applied twice, the first time, you know, I rushed into it. I did it pretty quick. I don't think I put enough time into it. So the second time around, I made sure I put all this stuff that I had done, all the projects relevant to the sponsoring facility I was targeting to, because I think it's a good idea to kind of know where you want to be doing your internships later on, so that the interests you have, like in my case, research interests, kind of align to what the sponsoring facility are. And so that's kind of helped me because my research was based on video processing through machine learning. And so my sponsoring facility here at the Sensors Directorate, they really liked that area, and so it was a good match. Also, I was able to get very good letters of recommendation from like the chief scientist and other key people that kind of strengthen my application as well. So just put as much time as you can, sell yourself well, and recommendations are very important.
you, Oliver. And Alfred, I know you were awarded in 2007, but I would have to imagine now that you've been in your career for quite a number of years now, can you give anyone any tips on what do you think the DoD would look for and what people should be looking to project within themselves on their application?
Oh, sure. Yeah. My real advice is to make yourself known to researchers at any potential sponsoring facilities well before you apply. If you're in their network already, if you've done summer research experiences with these folks, that just ups the likelihood of you sort of doing the right kind of research that's needed by the DoD research environment. So it's really about like just being there, just be present within that community. And then, instead of just the SMART scholarship being sort of like a cold call sort of thing, then, you're a known quantity, you're already working with the folks, and you actually know the lay of the land better. So when I applied, it was early days, and, I hadn't really thought it through much. And I remember there was like a branch selection aspect to it. Like, you just pick like Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever. And I just kind of checked a few boxes. I mean, it was pretty arbitrary. And so I was kind of walking into it blind. But nowadays, the people who come to me asking for smart advice, I can see that they're a lot better prepared. They're thinking about, where is the engineering, where is the science distributed, and where do they want to land? So I think that's a good mindset to have.
Thank you, Alfred. And yes, as a program manager, I echo that. I think everyone that applies needs to do research. On our website, at smartscholarship.org, we have all 190 facilities listed with the STEM disciplines that they can accommodate, and also their geolocation and links to POCs and their individual websites so that you can kind of do a little more quick research on those facilities. And so before we jump to the next question of the panel, I do have a few questions from the chat. So one of the questions we got was, are there any opportunities in the realm of regeneration or wound healing that are funded by DoD? Within the SMART program, the medical community does not participate as much. We do have some people from the Medical Research and Development Command out of the Army and a few other naval medical locations. Specifically within the realm of regeneration and wound healing, you would have to research those facilities individually. However, that is something that we are looking for. And I will preface this with, we are looking for researchers, not practitioners. So SMART does not fund MD degrees. We fund PhD degrees in those science areas. And that is a distinction that we need to make when talking to those types of folks. So I hope that answers your question. The age limit for SMART, so there is a minimum age of 18 years or older, as you do need to be registered with the Selective Service. And if you aren't registered with the Selective Service, you'll need to justify why. Current undergrads in the third year able to apply. So unfortunately, since we do have a minimum of 1.5 years for the award, juniors and seniors in their undergraduate are not eligible to apply, as they typically, especially the junior, do not have 1.5 years left. However, if you are a junior and do know that you'll need an extra semester, obviously you're able to apply. Or if you're thinking about grad school, please consider us as well, because for a graduate applicant, you do not have to declare your university or your program until the time of award, which would be in April.
And I would add, Tyler, that when you're in that in-between year, third year in college, I would encourage those folks to take advantage of the internship opportunities across the defense laboratories and our academic partners. In any given year, we probably have about 2,000 interns from various STEM disciplines in a variety of defense laboratories as well as academic institutions.
Thanks, Louis. And then our final question for now from the participants is, can a student apply at any point in their academic pursuit, whether it be undergrad, master's, or PhD? The answer is yes, as long as you have a minimum of 1.5 years left and a maximum of 5. So, just take that into consideration when you're looking to apply. And we would encourage you to apply at any point in your pursuit as long as you're eligible. So, Oliver, I'm going to come back to you for a question. What type of research are you currently conducting in your lab that you can release to the general public? So what does AFRL sensors do?
Yeah, so we look at machine learning applications and other type of applications for our sensors. And recently, one of the projects that we worked on over the summer, and by the way, we usually hire interns to come here to Dayton, Ohio and work with us during the summer breaks. So this program is called the ATR Center, if you want to Google it. And it's very popular. We have about 50 to 80 last time students coming here of different levels, undergrad, masters, and PhDs. And I worked personally with two undergrads, and we worked on a project that we released publicly, and it was presented recently at ICCV. This is a top international conference in computer vision in Seoul, Korea. And this project was on unsupervised clustering. So for those who are not familiar on this, is basically deep learning, machine learning, artificial intelligence topic that is very popular out there. And so this is what I've been working on recently, but we have several different topics related to machine learning right now and non-machine learning as well. So it's very well diverse, and there's a lot of smart people here working with us, and we have contractors and so forth. So yeah.
Thank you. Christopher, I'm going to go to you next. Space and Missile Defense Technical Center is unique in how they sit under an operational command at the Space and Missile Defense Command down there in Huntsville. So can you not only explain what you're currently doing and what SMDTC does, but also how it aligns under SMDC?
Yeah, so exactly like you said, we are an operational command, and we're responsible for a lot of important things. We're the ones that will knock incoming missiles down if they ever come towards the homeland. And so our research efforts are to support that. We do space surveillance, we do small responsive space, tactical space, and as well as high energy lasers, which is more of air defense weapon. But it's a very broad set of topics that we have, and the Tech Center is actually fairly small group. We have just about 150 people in the Tech Center, and so we get to put our fingers in a bunch of different topics. So I have research projects right now ranging from high energy laser thermal management to new coatings for quadrillion-based radar systems. We've also developed small test satellites that we've launched, and those are the things that I've done just in the 2 years that I've been here. So we get to have a wide variety of experiences here at SMDC.
Thank you for that. And Alfred, at Army Research Lab in Adelphi, Maryland, can you kind of, so for people to understand, Army Research Lab has locations at Adelphi, Maryland, Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico, and then there are open campus locations in Playa Vista, Austin, Chicago, and Boston. So Alfred, can you kind of give kind of an overview of what your current directorate and what you're specifically doing within ARL?
Sure. Yeah, and as a point of correction, I'm actually at Aberdeen Proving Ground, and that's a little bit further north than Adelphi. But it's just another one of the ARL sites. So broadly, I do research on human performance. One of the first thrust is really performance enhancement through neuromodulation. So we apply electrodes to people and stimulate the brain or peripheral nervous system. One of the things we're hoping to do is adaptive interventions that modulate your physiological state. So we're trying to boost parasympathetic nervous system activity that's implicated in rest and recovery processes. That's kind of like the brake on the fight or flight stress response that you get when you're overly stressed. So you can see how that could be a technology that could be very useful for the warfighter. The second thrust is enhancing threat detection. So, as Oliver pointed out, computer vision and machine learning is a big topic nowadays. So a lot of what Human Research and Engineering Directorate, which is where I am, what we work on is sort of adaptive teaming between humans and intelligent assistants. So we're really looking at the sort of intersection of, where computer vision can help the human in their decision-making process. So we're doing sort of basic psychophysics work. We're using fundamental vision neuroscience concepts to design what the next generation of smart weapon scopes might incorporate in terms of augmented reality symbology to support sort of the perception of the warfighter. So it's kind of like, I play a lot of video games, and my job is to take the capabilities that you actually see in these fictional sort of settings and actually turn them into real enablers for the warfighters. And finally, I work on accessible neurotechnologies. So I like to make things, and wherever we see a need in the field, we just try and rush in there and create something for the broader community. So for some of the electrode work, we actually needed a human head. So as a summer intern for SMART, I was coming in and having to volunteer for these studies, and they'd be like, "Hey, sit still. We got to put some electrodes on your head. Oh, you shaved the side of your head," which is where this hairstyle originated. Tyler, you could also be one of our test subjects. So basically, I got tired of volunteering for all this stuff, and we're like, we can make test fixtures that can, reproducibly produce electrical activity. So we sat down, designed it, created it, tested it in-house, and we've openly released some of these design schematics out to the broader neuroscience community. So that's something where there was a very real defense-related need. We made something, and it just so happened that there were knock-on effects for the rest of the community, and we were really happy that the rest of the scientific and engineering communities could benefit from that.
Thank you. And actually, that's a good point to make. While a lot of the DoD S&T community kind of, you see a lot of close hold information, or there's always the implication of a national security risk of sharing information. What I think we need to change the narrative on is the DoD actually does a lot for the civilian sector and the public use sector, and a lot of the technologies that we have within the civilian and public use sectors have originated in the DoD research and engineering. So while you'll definitely have some unique and probably secretive work, that's not the majority of the stuff most of you will be doing. Granted, some of the intel agencies will beg to differ.
So Tyler, before you go into the next question, we just want to encourage participants on this webinar to keep asking away questions on the chat room, and then we'll answer them as we go to us as well as the panelists.
All right, and so I'm going to throw in a new question that I thought of while we were talking about this to kind of pile on to what we're currently doing. But if you could all take a couple minutes to think about any unique experience that you can talk about through DoD employment that you may not have had in industry or academia, so I can lead off. I'm actually an Army civilian and have been as an Army civilian engineer for the past 10 years. I started out as an electronic warfare analyst, and so some of the unique experiences I've had is actually interaction with deployed soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan who actually needed help with employing real-world electronic warfare defeat systems. And the discussion I had with them, via communications, typically by email, but the ability to look at the terrain data that they were deployed in, and then be able to help them employ their defensive systems in a way that would protect them from enemy IEDs and other electronic signals, definitely was a unique experience, but also a rewarding one. And that's definitely something that I know I would not have gotten a chance to do without being an employee of the Army. So, Oliver, can you think of anything that you've done that may fit this bill?
Well, Yeah, there is several things. One of the things I was thinking is just the opportunity to work with high performance computing. Um, Before I came here, I was at a university, and although we had some computers there that we could use for machine learning, we need to have a lot of high high performance computers. It's a must so that you can experiment and create results very quickly. And something that the Air Force has, and especially here in our Census Directorate, we have access to these high performance computers that are very fast, and they can handle a lot of data. And so we could process a lot of information fairly quickly. And a couple of years ago, when I was doing that, I was one of the first ones that were granted access to these computers, and because of that, we were able to finish processing a huge lot of data that we had to do. And at the time, I was doing my PhD, and I was participating in this contest, this competition, an international competition on processing videos. But thanks to the use of these computers, I was able to finish quickly my results and submit it to the competition. We ended up winning the competition, and it created some news here. But it tells you how the advantage of having this computer power, and we also have other resources that can probably share here, but we have a lot of resources here. And the second one is just having access to incredible people. You get to meet like military, but generals and just the chief scientists, great mentors that have shaped my career and have made it better. So it's just the people and also the resources are great. Thank you.
Thank you. Alfred, how about yourself? Can you describe one unique experience?
Sure. Oliver already took this one, but it's really the people. The exposure to people who are extremely mission focused is something that's incredibly unique to working in this environment. So as a psychologist, in grad school, you work with college undergrads as your sample population, and you hope to generalize from them to the broader community. Here in the Army, when you're working with soldiers and people who are coming from that sort of background, they just have a very different sense of the world, and so they will ask you, "What's your mission?" And if you don't know what your mission is, then what are you doing really? And so that's something that I've carried with me, as part of my first SMART internship. I was out there in the middle of the night in a field with a night vision optic, and the colonel, the lieutenant colonel, next to me asked me what my mission was. I wasn't really sure. I was kind of like, I'm out in this field, I don't know. So from then on, it's really helped me sharpen my thinking. What's the end goal of doing what I'm doing here today as I'm sitting here? How do I want it to see? How should it be deployed out in the field in the future? So really, the unique aspect is that sort of forcing function of needing the research to apply to a real world setting of a very unique sort, right? Where there's high performance needs, and for it to be delivered to a soldier, I think that's a very, very unique sort of ecosystem to work in.
Thank you. And Christopher, an example from you?
Yeah, so unique opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else is, I think one of the biggest ones is travel. I've gotten to go to Kwajalein and Hawaii, and I almost got on a trip up to Greeley, Alaska. Lots of cool places. I went to Yuma Proving Grounds, and I helped out with the test event there. Great experiences, lots of really fun, cool stuff going on in the DoD.
Thank you. And so I guess we'll move to the next question. So Oliver, can you discuss how SMART has impacted your academic pursuit, and just touch on also your career as well?
Yeah, so SMART has given me the opportunity to highlight my research overseas, across different directorates, and it's been a great opportunity to collaborate with other people and to learn from others, and also mentor some other students. Like I mentioned before, we have internships here, and now I work in collaboration with Brigham Young University, where I have one of my students is working there, and we're working on a cutting edge research project, and so we're trying to also mentor the next generation. So it's kind of a big cycle that we get to be mentees first and then mentors. So it's a great opportunity. One more thing that I could add is the pay is really well. I was a little bit scared about it because I thought, well, working for the government might not be as good, but it actually they pay me very well, and my manager was very, very nice to give me a good offer. So I'm very happy with the decision I made. So I just invite other ones to apply to the SMART program.
Thank you. Christopher, how about yourself? How has SMART impacted how did SMART impact your academic pursuit and your career?
Well, the fact that we have a very generous stipend while we're in school allows us to focus, and it actually allowed me to finish a little quicker than I might have otherwise. When it got down to the wire and I was writing my dissertation, had I not had the SMART scholarship, I'd also be trying to apply for jobs and probably would have stretched that out for another semester or more to try to, find a job and complete a dissertation at the same time. And as far as the career goes, I'll echo what Oliver said. It's even though I've only been around for 2 years, I'm seeing our next batch of SMART scholarship kids come into our organization, and I'm able to mentor them. And at the same time, I'm being mentored by people who've been here longer than me. And SMDC, I think, does a really good job of quickly incorporating people that come in through the SMART scholarship into their very important work and part of the team.
Great, thank you. Alfred, also you, how did SMART impact your academic pursuit and career?
Sure. SMART gave me a really well-structured pathway to set up the future research environment while I was in grad school. So you kind of get to hit the ground running when you have these summer research experiences that repeat year after year. And so my future colleagues instantly welcomed me into the fold, and then they gave me the chance to participate in sort of strategic planning as a fully fledged colleague, even when I was back at school. So it was almost like I was almost getting to write my own job description because I was setting up the environment that I was going to be graduating into. It's almost like I was being given the opportunity to build the plane and learn to fly the plane as we were all in the plane, flying the plane as a team. That's really a tortured metaphor. Sorry, I work for the Army, not the Air Force. But anyway, it's kind of like getting that opportunity to be integrated in such a deep sense. It allows you to go back to your academic department at the end of the summer, refreshed, full of ideas. And so some of those ideas made it into sort of my dissertation work, where you're sort of taking back, here's what the future Army needs, what DoD needs. So it was really refreshing for me to be bouncing back and forth between different environments. But one improves the other, and I feel like the benefits are sort of bidirectional in that sense.
Thank you. And before we get to the last question, we'll go to a question we got from the chat. It said, how do people wanting to apply for the SMART scholarship get in touch with the DoD scientists, engineers, lab staff, and everything like that? So there are a multitude of ways. One way is you go to the website, smartscholarships.org, and each sponsoring facility has a POC that you can email with questions, and if they can direct you to the specific person at that lab that can answer your question. The other way is actually talking to your faculty. So DoD sponsors research in hundreds of universities and colleges across the nation. And I would say probably 99% of the time, if you speak to someone on your faculty, they will know of someone who works either is funded by the DoD or collaborates with a DoD lab scientist or engineer. And, leveraging either that relationship or just speak to them generally will also give you an idea of what it's like working in the DoD or with the DoD. And so lastly, what advice would you give the future scholars? So your top 2 bullet points quickly so we can answer any final questions. Alfred, top 2 advice for applying to the SMART program?
Sure. And this has been covered multiple times in this conversation. Really just be involved in the ecosystem. Aside from the scholarships, there's also, the summer experiences. And so just make yourself known and be part of that conversation, even in a non-formal sort of setting. Just reach out to current scholars, current researchers, and, just have that conversation about how potentially their research could tie into broader DoD needs.
Thank you. Christopher, how about yourself?
So advice I'd give is if you can find someone who has the scholarship, they'd be a great resource to talk to about the application. And even if you think you might be early in the process, I'd encourage you to look at the application and kind of give yourself an evaluation on which are your weaker areas and try to do something to make you more competitive for the next year. So say as an undergrad, you don't have much research experience, there are tons of opportunities with professors that would love to have a paid or even an unpaid research assistant in their lab helping their grad students out. And that is a wonderful way to get research experience for a SMART application.
Thank you. And Oliver, you get to wrap us up. Any final advice?
Well, one of the things I would recommend the students is to follow your passion, be honest with yourself, with others about what you really want to accomplish, and work hard at it. Be persistent, never give up. I told the story that I had to apply twice to the scholarship, and in other scholarships, I was rejected a couple of times. So being persistent is very important to get success, and just keep working hard and trusting God. That's all.
Thank you. And I would just echo Oliver's sentiment of follow your passion. The DoD lab and science and engineering enterprise is quite different from industry and academia. So to best understand it, obviously would to be an intern, take advantage of the internship opportunities, but also just in general to think about what it is you want to do with your career. I recognize some of you are very early in your academic pursuits, so that may be a difficult question to answer. But this may, even applying for the program, may help you kind of focus what you want to do, whether it is or is not with the program. So I would just encourage you, like every one of the other panelists, to sit down and actually just look at the application, as it may help you as a self-reflective tool. And with that, I want to thank the three panelists for helping us with this. I think this was a great discussion, and I appreciate their time of taking out of their day to do this. And I'm going to hand it back over to Mr. Lopez.
Thanks, Tyler. Do we have any other questions from the chat room? Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, we appreciate you listening to us today. I hope this webinar provided you some additional opportunities for you and your students to take advantage of at the Department of Defense. And with that, have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.